Once again, welcome to the War Room. We are at the very end of our Korea campaign. We have progressed through 5 ages, and now we're a third of the way through the sixth stage, the Age of Revolutions, with the final goal of getting every single advance that is available to us in the game. We have so far completed all of the advances from the previous ages, with the exception of one advance in the Age of Absolutism, which we can't actually research since we don't meet the dynamic historical event requirements, and we are making good progress towards getting all the advances in the Age of Revolutions. Now, this is going to be the final episode here, and we will definitely not be engaging in any other mass scale conquests like what we just did with China, where half of the country remains unintegrated, although we do have cores on most of the other half, which is the better half, mind you. And we do have, okay control along the coasts, but fairly shaky and even non-existent control in the inland regions. And I guess at this point, all that is left is converting China to Sikhism and trying to assimilate as many people as we can into our Portuguese culture, because yes, we are playing as Portuguese Sikh Great Britain. So, this is going to be a fairly short episode. We're just going to skip ahead until the year 1836, and I'm probably going to try and develop and integrate and assimilate China in the meantime, while we are just researching all the advances that are available to us. At the same time, we are dealing with two separate disasters. The colonial revolution situation is going to last until the end of the game, and we will have to figure out some way of dealing with our unruly colonies. Essentially, nothing's going to happen here. The colonies are just going to keep declaring war after war on us, and we're just going to keep ignoring them and white piecing them out eventually. But the aspiration for liberty desire requires us to interact with it a bit more, since we need to get up to 51 stability for the disaster to disappear. I believe that this is basically a lead up to the Great Revolution, and if you look at the painting here, Lady Liberty, the Phrygian cap, stuff like, I think that's the Bastille in the background, that kind of stuff. So hopefully we will actually avoid the Great Revolution here, and we will be able to restabilize our country quickly and get out of the disaster. It is good to know that we are not the only country suffering from colonial rebellions. The Republic of Canada has also declared a war of independence against France, so hopefully they will become independent and we should be able to attack them and complete our conquest of North America. As expected, after getting their armies stack wiped, Penobscot was willing to accept a white peace, and they have gone back to being our colonial nation. They still have zero loyalty to us, but that's okay, we don't need them to be loyal, we just need them to remain as our colonial nation. I'm also going to... or should I? Yeah, we probably should peace out this war, but we can't actually take any land, which is kinda strange. Oh, so we have to take the war goal first, but we can't take the war goal either. I guess it's strange, so we'll just make white peace here as well. And there we go, we are back at peace. Nothing major going on. Eventually, our colonial nations will hopefully take care of the remaining Mesoamerican natives, but for now, nothing major going on. Yeah, well, apparently there is something major going on. That is, our other colonial nation, Patapsco, has declared a war of independence. This is absolutely broken, since the same thing that happened with Penobscot is going to happen here. They're just going to get defeated in the field of battle, and then eventually they will just accept a white peace. So I guess I'm not going to peace out the colonial nations as they keep declaring wars against us. Mainly because when we peace them out, when we're at peace, somebody else decides to declare war, which messes things up. The revolution died with a whimper rather than a bang, and order is restored, since there can be no dissent in our absolutist empire. We have 54% crown power and are at 100% absolutism and 100% centralization, which is fairly not meta usually. but in this case the crown power and proximity speed are both helping us immensely. But anyways, I was waiting for the revolution to end to proclaim a decree. We are going to go ahead and proclaim the Commence Infrastructure Works decree, and this will allow us to build up our road network again, because we definitely need additional roads going into the new conquests in northwestern China. I'm going to upgrade all our roads to modern roads. It's probably going to take something like 2 or 3 minutes before my computer is able to calculate it all. It just takes so long, but as you can see, the locations just whiz through. You know, you can literally see the game going through the list location by location, building up roads. And this is basically like ASMR. Except the game is down to something like 12 FPS right now, which is just extremely funny. But I guess we're getting the roads built, so, you know, all is well. And of course, while we're busy with building the road network, I will not forget about building bridges this time, as well as pound block canals and the Jixian, whatever this thing is, because these give an additional 10% max control in urban locations, and they are actually a major factor as to why I'm able to have 100 or 90% control in most of coastal China, despite the nearest proximity source being located all the way in Japan. And you might be wondering, why am I not simply moving my capital to China at this point? We have two very simple reasons. One is called the, if I can find it, where are you? One is called the Royal Society, which has to be in our capital to provide monthly research progress, and the other is called the Globe Theater. No, that's a war college. Where is the Globe Theater? Okay. Oh, the Globe Theater, which gives 10% additional max literacy for our commoners, because it's in our capital. So until we are done with most of the advances that we have queued up, I won't be able to move my capital away from London, lest we lose the literacy and base monthly research point bonuses. And we have unlocked the steel mill, which surprisingly enough creates steel. And steel is not very useful, but I believe it does unlock a few production methods for the late game. But more importantly, it is going to become one of the main materials of building railroads. So I'm probably going to plop down some steel mills across our country, especially in China, because we are definitely going to need railroads in China. And to be fair, these guys are pretty costly to build, but they're also going to provide a lot of profits for us, which I honestly don't understand what's going on here. Like, we have just unlocked the steel mills. There shouldn't be any demand for them. So how come these buildings show that they would produce like 14 ducats in taxes? Honestly, let's build them first. And yes, I did spend 500,000 ducats building steel mills. And let's build them first and ask questions later. If there happens to be no demand for steel, we are going to create our own demand once we start building railroads anyways, so it should be all fine and well. And there it is, railroads have been unlocked, and we're definitely going to start building them up. Although I presume we should wait for the steel mills to finish constructing first. But in something like 10 to 20 years, and hopefully before the decree is over, we're definitely going to embark on another mass building spree, and we will build railroads all across China so that we actually start getting okay amounts of proximity. Now you might realize that we do have okay proximity in some of these areas. That's mostly coming from viceroyalties. I have basically built up mass viceroyalties in any town and city out here in the west that is worth building them in, and as a result we probably have quite a few locations where the nearest proximity source is the viceroyalty itself, which provides 30 local proximity, which is more than enough to keep our western provinces at an okay level of control. And mind you, these locations have barely been cored, once they have been built up, the control here is probably going to rise a bit further. Although I guess in rural locations we're just never going to have decent control. Alright, the steel mills are up, and that means I'm going to spend another 500,000 or so ducats upgrading as many roads as possible to railroads. So here goes nothing, and you guys can enjoy a bit of road building ASMR, I guess. Although it's progressing so slowly that I'm just going to skip ahead. We are going to make peace with Patapsco since Towasage has declared another war of independence on us. So I guess these guys just don't earn their independence since they always seem to agree to a white peace. Just look at that. We can just send them a white peace and they don't desire anything else. Like, you're supposed to be independent. You're supposed to ask me for independence. You're supposed to desire something more that is independence. But they just don't care. They're just going to accept a white peace if we offer it to them. I believe it's been something like a decade since the end of our last war with the Great Chen, and we've already integrated and cored all of China proper. Some of the more peripheral areas such as the Gansu corridor or parts of Tibet that we own are being integrated as we speak, but they shouldn't take too long either. And at this point, we actually have a decent bit of control throughout the region, despite not having a single administrative center here, except for a few viceroyalties in the west. And proximity is quite okay. We are still getting not nearly enough to maintain high control in the inland regions, but some of the railroads are working their magic, and at least our proximity cost is down by quite a bit, and it almost costs us nothing to go through the sea anyways. It only costs something like 1 proximity per sea tile at this point, with all of the boosts that we've stacked on top of each other. So we have a bit of a problem. We managed to run out of possible heirs. There is literally not a single Ashikaga left in the world who can take over the mantle once our current ruler just dies. So I guess we have to change our succession law at this point. Let's see. And the only real option here, we could go for dynastic elective, but I'm not quite sure whether, this would work or how exactly it would work. Like, would we still make a choice from amongst the Ashikaga dynasty? It does appear to be that way. Or we could just go full elective succession, which is probably going to, give us some fairly decent rulers. And we aren't really starved for crown power at this point. So I guess I'm going to go with the elective succession here, if only to get that 199-100 Giga Chad on the throne eventually. And it did cost us 50 legitimacy and 50 stab, but we can get both of those back. If we didn't have an heir, we would never be able to get an heir, since this guy is 54 years old, and we are locked into monogamous marriages for some reason. Turns out this is what happens when you unlock the steam engine advance and can build an additional RGO level in practically every location, while you're also building up your steel mills across all of your urban locations. Oh my god, just look at that. There is literally 1,000,000 ducats worth of investment that you can see on this screen. And I have no idea what the return on this is going to be, or if there is going to be a return. Like, there is still a chance that we're just spending money into the ether at this point. Well, I'll be damned. We have spent more than 10 million ducats on upgrading our road network to railroads, but it does look like we have upgraded every single road that can be upgraded, and already in the coastal regions we have our railroads up and running, and hopefully they are also going to expand into the inland regions very soon. Again, I've dropped 10 million ducats on this. I do expect to see results. And speaking of results, our control is still pretty sketchy out west. The viceroyalties do help, like we do have occasional splotches of 80s, 90s, etc., where there are viceroyalties. But in general, the entire western edge of China is a controlled black hole, and we definitely need to figure out a way of exerting our influence in the region. It is the year 1786, we are halfway through the Age of Revolutions, and we are doing just fine. We have a monthly research progress of 5.16 points per month, and that will be more than enough to get every single advance in the game. By my calculations, we will get the full tech tree by the year 1829, and that's assuming we don't get any good events. So if we hit free tinkers, for example, or if we get a ruler who's a free tinker, that could move up the schedule by up to 5 or 10 years, depending on the situation. But as it stands right now, we are definitely on track to accomplish our goal. Our average literacy is at 97.37%, and if we look at the literacy map mode, obviously all of our previous conquests and all of our urban locations are at 100%. The mostly rural northwest is still lagging behind. Most locations here have something in the 70s, 80s in terms of their literacy rate, and there are some peasants who are down to 75% even. Obviously these guys will take a long time to get up to speed. They're getting a bit less than 1% literacy per year, so I suspect it's going to be until the 1710s or the 1720s when we actually see the 100% literacy rate again. And considering that we had achieved that by the early 1600s, yeah, we really are lagging quite behind at this point. But anyways, our literacy and monthly research is just fine. If we look at our income versus our expenses are fairly muted. I'm mostly spending the diplomatic spending to keep complacency down. We still have a coalition. I presume we're going to have that coalition basically forever. And we are able to extract a really insane amount of tax from our estates. Our maximum tax for the burghers is at 95%, although 25% of that is coming from our parliament approved taxes. So even though we are utterly unable to tax our nobility or our burghers, our clergy, we are doing just fine in terms of our economy and in terms of our budget. Our colonial nations, as you can see, are all rebellious. They're getting plus 146 to their subject. They're getting minus 146 to their subject loyalty. So honestly, these guys are just off the charts disloyal right now. There's literally nothing that we can do that would make them loyal again. And the colonial revolution situation is just the cherry on top. But with all that being said, what happens is they rebel, and in a couple of months, we just send them a white piece, they accept, and it's all back to nothing. And business as usual continues. So there isn't much left to do at this point of the game. I'm mostly assimilating everyone that I can to Portuguese culture, and we have come quite far in that regard. Most of the coastline here is Portuguese, and the Portuguese culture is 37.64% of our entire country. We have 88 million Portuguese pups living in our country, and if we look at the entire world, oops, okay, that's interesting. Why can't we? Yeah, the ledger seems to be bugged. It wasn't bugged the last time I checked, but if we look at Portuguese, there we go. We have 187 million, yes, million Portuguese people living in the entire world. A huge chunk of which is obviously in our colonies. There are still a huge amount of Koreans living in our colonies as well as in their old homeland. But even there, most of Korea is now Portuguese. The passive assimilation actually worked wonders, and it's only the large cities like Kaesong that still remain staunchly Korean. For the most part, Japan is almost entirely Portuguese, and we are making good progress towards assimilating everyone. And if you look at the religious map mode, well, Sanjiao is still remaining strong, but Sikhism has basically engulfed all of Japan and Korea. I have no idea what sort of weird bugginess is going on here. Like, we're supposed to get conversion, but we aren't getting any conversion. It just stays Shinto for whatever reason. But even in China, especially in the regions that we conquered earlier than the western provinces, Sikhism does have quite a bit of a foothold. Even some locations are 100% Sikh, as you can see. And I suspect that by the time this campaign is over, our country will be something like 70-80% at least Sikh, followed by maybe 20% Sanjiao, and all of the other religions are going to be in negligible amounts. Our liturgical language is, of course, Portuguese, as funny as that may sound. And I don't intend to switch out of Sikhism anytime soon. The monthly research progress here is quite vital to our larger goals in this campaign. So, that is how we're doing, halfway into the Age of Revolutions. And we have 50 more years left to go in the game. I'm just going to let the game go ahead, and we're just going to keep assimilating and converting and researching stuff until we hit our goal. It is the year 1796. I have been upgrading all the buildings I could, but as you can see, the backlog is still massive. Control is a joke right now. Thanks to all of our maritime presence and railroads, we have 100% control across all of Korea, except for a few mountainous locations up north, which have 99 or even, oh god, 97% max control. And it's basically the same story in Japan. Even in northeastern China, all of our urban locations have up to 100% control. We are struggling to keep control up in rural locations, but that is quite alright. We have few enough of those already anyways. So if we look at the culture groups map mode, which is easier to read compared to cultures, we have a fairly significant Portuguese presence in China already. Most of the southeast is majority Portuguese. There are some holdouts, but they will not hold out for long. And I'm going to keep spreading Portuguese culture throughout the coastline until we reach Beijing. So once we have the coastline secured, we will probably continue our assimilation campaign further inland. Although at that point it's quite likely that the game will be over, since we only have 40 years left on the clock at this point. So we have been doing quite far. We have 47 advances left for us to research. Our average literacy is a tad bit over 98%. We're closing in on 99 right now, and our monthly research progress is 5.18 points. So that is the state of the union right now. The colonies keep rebelling, and as I've mentioned before, we keep putting them down. So let's see how long it takes for us to research all of these texts, and let's see how many people we can assimilate into becoming Portuguese by the time this campaign is over. Also, or finally, Sikhism is our majority religion, not just a plurality religion. Sanjiao is in the back foot, and almost all of China is converting to Sikhism en masse. I have also been removing some of our accepted cultures in order to increase the speed of assimilation. I was worried about getting rebellions at first, but it looks like our estates are so satisfied that even the 50 satisfaction penalty from removing an accepted culture doesn't make a dent in our populace. So I guess we're going to remove all of our remaining accepted cultures, and from this point on we are going to be Portuguese supremacists We are not going to accept any other cultures. There we go. You guys go as well. And as you can see, we don't have any accepted cultures left. Everybody is going to start speaking Portuguese at this point. It is the year 1807 and we have basically managed to break the game again by stacking all of our cabinet members on a single province. We are able to assimilate 16,000 people per month. Yes, at that rate, this single location with more than 200,000 people living in it would be entirely assimilated within the span of a year and a half. But of course, we are going to divide up our attention a bit more. And now that most of the coast is Portuguese, we're going to go ahead and connect the Portuguese lands to the Beijing area so that all of the coast is Portuguese. And then we're probably going to focus on this area, which is fairly populous, but at the same time stands very close to our Portuguese homelands or newly minted homelands. So it will be slightly easier to assimilate, I suppose. It is the year 1810 and we have achieved an average literacy of 99.99%. But of course, we can't get this to 100% for the simple reason that we have extraterritorial buildings. You see, all of those trade offices that we built way back when in the first episode are still intact, and as a result, our pops in these locations do not use our own max literacy, but the max literacy of the country where they are located in. So in order to get to 100% max literacy, I would actually have to destroy every single trade office that we have. And I guess we could do that, but it's going to take a lot of clicks for me. So I presume that an easier way to do this would be to close them. And by closing them, I assume that the pops will just either move out or migrate back to our homelands, and therefore we should be able to get to 100% literacy by closing down all of our extraterritorial buildings. It's the year 1820. We have 99.99% literacy still, and it turns out the reason here is not just the extraterritorial buildings, but for some reason there are also a few Scottish peasants who have yet to learn how to read and write up in northern Scotland around Inverness, so I doubt that we will actually be able to hit 100% literacy. We could technically create a vassal for all of these guys, but really there is no need. I guess 99.99% will be more than enough for our purposes, since we only have 12 technologies left to research. Yes, it does say 13 here and 12 in the research queue because one of them requires us to have an event, which I haven't been able to do. So I guess we're going to leave 2 advances, which we simply can't research at the end of the day. So run failed. I guess we have failed our initial goal, but at the same time, we only have 12 left. We should easily be able to get it by 1830, possibly even earlier than that. So I'll be waiting until our research queue has finished. In the meantime, we've been doing a great job at assimilating the coastline. Basically, everyone in the coast is majority Portuguese now, and as you can see, there's this huge blob of Portuguese that stretches all the way from Japan to South China. There are still minorities all across our country, but Portuguese is the undeniable star of the game, and 57% of our country is Portuguese. I suspect that by the time this campaign is over, this number will be somewhere in the high 60s, maybe close to 70. Not enough to make the run worth it, but definitely a significant number if you consider everything. And we have an assimilation rate of 120%. Our cultural tradition and influence are both through the roof. And as for our religion, we have 61% of our people who believe in Sikhism and a bit over 33% who believe in Sanjiao. Again, there's a bug here. The Shintoists simply refuse to convert for whatever reason. But other than that, even in our later conquests in Manchuria, we have a significant Sikhist plurality, let us say, although it's going to be a while before all of the Eastern Buddhists here convert to Sikhism. And across China, well, you can see what's going on in China. So that is more or less the state of our country right now, and I am going to continue assimilating as many people as I can before this run is over. Also at this point, I've basically created a racial supremacist ethno-state. Not only do we have no accepted cultures except Portuguese, but our opinion of every other culture in our country is enemy. Yes, that even includes our Korean ancestors. We are basically considering everyone other than Portuguese people to be our enemies, so that we get a bit of extra assimilation speed on every single culture in the game. It is time. It is the year 1828, and in the next monthly tick, we are going to research the last advance that is available to us. We are finally going to end our campaign on a high note. We are going to accomplish the very same goal that we set out to accomplish on the first episode of this series almost 3 weeks ago. So, here goes nothing. Yep. March Against Fire advance has been researched, and with that we have researched every single advance that is available to us. It is the year 1828. We have 8 years to spare, and we have finished the tech tree. Korea has officially into space. Now, there is one small caveat. If you look at the Age of Revolutions, it says 115 out of 116 advances. That is because there is a single advance hidden somewhere around here. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, I can't find it. But there's basically a single advance. Oh, there we go. Water frame, which requires you to have a specific event before it is unlocked, and unfortunately we did not get that event due to whatever bug in the game. So this is not technically a 100% completion of the tree. We're missing one technology or one advance in the Age of Revolutions and one in the Age of Absolutism, and that's because the events just don't fire. But as you can see, we have cleared out everything in the main tree, which should be what counts, which is what is replicable with any nation in the game, and we have no more advances that are available to us. We have every single institution in the game embraced, obviously. We have an average literacy of 99.99%, still not 100, I couldn't beat lemon cake in this one, and we have a monthly research progress of 5.19 points. Well, it has been such a journey. If we look a bit further into our society, you will see that 61.45% of our country is Portuguese. Again, if I keep playing for another 8 years, we can probably get more Portuguese pops. Right now, basically all of coastal China is Portuguese, as is Korea and Japan. If you look at the culture groups map mode, as you can see, these areas are all majority Portuguese. As for our religion, almost 2/3 of our country believes in Sikhism. It is the majority religion in coastal China, as well as the vast majority religion in Korea, Japan, and obviously Manchuria, and it is still making some fairly significant inroads into inland China too. So we're definitely on our track to get a religiously united and culturally united country. We will not be able to get it within the time frame of EU5, but you know, that's fine. And if you look at our population, 55% is laborers, 41% is peasants, 3% is burghers. We have a lot of soldiers, a lot of clerics, and a lot of nobles, millions of each in fact. And in general, our population is pretty cool with our rules. Like, there are some folks around that have satisfactions in almost negative territory, but for the most part, people are happy with our rule. I know that some of you guys just love looking at the development map mode, so there you go. We have achieved very high levels of development in parts of China, as well as in our first capital of Kaesong and the area around it. And our second capital, Dongnae, is at 90 development, as are various locations across Japan. Overall, our development map isn't as good as it could be. I didn't really save scum or adapted the admiralty election reform or anything cheesy like that to maximize development, since we've already done more than enough cheese to maximize our research points. And let's see what else we have got here for wealth. Most of Western China is really underdeveloped, there isn't much to do out here, and in the coastline there are some areas which are very wealthy, as well as some locations in Korea which are extremely wealthy. Japan, in contrast, is fairly middling, but we are in general a very wealthy society, although our Indian territories, for some reason, are just off the charts wealthy. Just look at this, 444 wealth. Like, what is this coming from? What's the source here? Oh, right. Oh, so we have industrialized our Indian holdings quite a bit. I didn't expect that, really. And what else? For control, as you can see, we have 100% control in Korea and Japan. We have almost 100% across vast swathes of the Chinese coastline. The combination of these locations being almost entirely urban, a bunch of bridges, pound lock canals, and various flat control boosts such as the Zhejiang that are available to us in China, the temples, minting offices, all of these just add up so much that we actually have 100% development, or rather control, in most of coastal China, despite pulling proximity all the way from a local governor with viceroyalty here in Aki. And even in western China, we have some spots where control is decent, usually thanks to the system of viceroyalties that we've set up across western China. So all is fine and well over there as well. And let's see about the markets. We've got a bunch of markets, not much going on here really, other than the fact that we are still starved for cocoa and potatoes for some reason. Also, we were quite there was quite a lot of demand for stuff like masonry, so I mass built masons, which in turn caused the demand for sand and clay to skyrocket, so I mass built sand and clay pits as well. So there's a lot of economic development going on, but again, I basically played the last 100 years of this game with the economy on autopilot, so this definitely is nothing compared to what you could really achieve with a united East Asia if you were just building up your economy instead of research maxing as I've been doing across this run. And we have quite a lot of members of the Middle Kingdom. As you can see, most of India and basically everyone in the steppes is part. But our celestial authority is quite shaky. We had a lot of decrees that we proclaimed, and I recently reshaped our bureaucracy, so now we're getting a little bit more celestial authority, thankfully. And I guess all is well on that front as well. And well, that is more or less what we have got going here. I am going to build up our RGOs for one last time, just to show you how pretty the RGO map is. Just look at all of these guys. And I guess that is all. Although, hold up a second, we've mostly focused on East Asia. I wonder what's going on in Europe, because I honestly don't think I've looked at Europe in like 50 years, because I was entirely busy assimilating everyone to Portuguese in China, so I was just looking at the map and micromanaging our cabinet. So I really do wonder what exactly is going on in Europe. So let's take a quick look at Europe. I'm sure it's mostly the same with France and Hungary and Castile and all of those guys. And wait, what?